All great empires rise, all great empires fall. Today I want to share with you 6 stages, that's right, 6 stages of all great and godly empires explained biblically. We've seen this done historically or perhaps through different cycles. Today I'm going to show you cycles, history, but in the context of the Bible. We're going to do that through the biblical book of Judges, so let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. Reason for Truth, the truth comes first, reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning. Have to be learning, have to be studying. Because if you're not learning, you're not studying, you're not teaching well, because you're not learning well. We don't want that to happen. So listen, what happens when a great and godly generation, there's ungodly generations that pass away, but I want to talk about looking at the Bible and looking at the United States, what happens when a great and godly generation passes away and a younger, undisciplined, and godless generation takes over? Well, in his infamous book, The Fourth Turning, the answer is given in great detail within the framework that difficult times raises up strong people that produce good times, which in turn produce, lazy, undisciplined people who usher in tough times because of their laziness. And out of those tough times, that's a hardy, principled people. They're raised up once again, and the cycle continues to go through. But today I want to show you through the biblical book of Judges 6 basic stages that Israel in particular went through, and that I think all nations proclaiming God, not godless, but God of the universe, the biblical God, that they go through, right? Losing their freedom, gaining their freedom, and that's what we're going to look at today. And this is very true, by the way, of the present state of the United States of America. Nota bene, right? Note well, as Dr. Leventhal used to say in class, the United States and Europe are not Israel. But God's ways are consistent and listen, I believe accurately portrayed in today's episode through application. So has America been Swiss cheesed? I think so. The United States has gone from being the best cheese in the block to Swiss cheese, meaning the frame is still there. There's tons of tunnels and holes that have hollowed it out. Still a lot of great Americans, a lot of great American believers in Jesus Christ, by the way. But America is now held up by a mere framework of Christians who are hanging on biblically, this biblically literate remnant. Sadly, many of, if not most Christians have developed a faith driven primarily by emotions. So while God has both intellect and emotion, he has bestowed upon us both, his created beings, and to understand and accept, listen, what comes from the head through to the heart always comes through the head, folks. You just can't, nothing except, oh, God spoke to my heart. Well, it had to come through your head. You wouldn't even know what it is that's affecting your heart, right? Could be Satan. Seriously. Furthermore, in the biblically literate church or the illiterate church, I find something I didn't see in my grandparents' generation. What do you want to say? Even today's world, I see a lot of apathy. God has called you and me, each of us, to avoid apathy. We're wise to save our mental and physical energy for the calling God's given us and not complain. And certainly, we're going to complain. I guess we're human beings. But we need to accept the fact that God's allowing the current situation, the reshuffling of the deck monetarily, mission, calling. Listen, the whole influence of Christianity in the world, he's called us to, that's changing geographically, going to the east, going to Africa. Dinesh D'Souza said years ago, he says, perhaps one day the black and brown man will come to America to evangelize the white man. It's happening already, and thank God for that. It's understandable to feel scared, lonely, worried about the present situation, and even the future for our kids, but let's keep that in check. Let's instead muster the courage, God's strength to do the mission he's called us to in the present, not get caught up what might be. God's in control. Isn't that the major part of the purpose of life, though, is what we do and why we do it? Mission, purpose. I want to put all that in perspective, and that I'm talking about in biblical language to see what God talks about in terms of the book of Judges and how the book of Judges looked at life, how their leaders led, with meaning and purpose, but also really the 6 stages, the 6 different cycles they went through, because they did over and over in the book of Judges. It's the same story, and I think those 6 stages or cycles are just the same for us, you and I today, okay? Judges chapter 2, the book of Judges provides 6 stages that nations go through from obeying God to being blessed. Then they move into disobeying God, coming under God's judgment. And listen, I want to challenge you to read closely, as it seems abundantly clear to me that the United States and Europe are following these same cycles of judgment. We're once godly nation. All right, so let's go into today's lesson with the understanding that all nations rise, all fall. That's true of all great civilizations. Now, the good news is that once a nation falls, it can rise out of the ashes and begin to heal. It's going to be always as something different, but not what it was prior to the collapse. So God calls this refining. And God says in Isaiah, I will turn my hand against you and will smelt away your dross as lye and remove all your alloy. See, Isaiah 125. Today I'm going to summarize again this in 5 short verses and then beyond. We'll look beyond, but I want to focus on Judges 2, 8-12. So let's jump right in. Read Judges 2. It says, And Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. Here you go, the godly older generation. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance at Timnath. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. And they abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods from among the gods of the poles that were around them and bowed down to them. And they provoked the Lord to anger. Judges 2, 8-12. This is playing out. We say, well, we're not worshiping the Baals. Well, the Baals just represent, different idols and false gods. We do that all the time. We do it through, NFL has become a guide for many people. Going out, and nothing wrong with NFL, nothing wrong with boating, nothing wrong with any kind of recreation. But when it becomes all-encompassing, when our beach house or our going on vacation or the freedom to do things, when it becomes the thing that rules our life and directs us above God, then it becomes an idol. You can read the passage for yourself, break it down in stages for yourself, and it's a good exercise. So now I want to break down these 6 passages into 6 parts, showing each stage Israel repeatedly went through, the time and time again through the book of Judges. Each cycle, again, is represented by generational rise and fall based on the nation's obedience to blessing, and then what? Forgetting God and disobedience, which leads to their fall, being taken over, always being invaded by foreign nations until they are, well, that sounds familiar, until they repent and return to the Lord once again. Don't forget, the residuals, the scars of those invasions are never go away. That's just part of the culture now. Let's pick up at stage 1, which picks up at the tail end of the blessed nation governed by a generation of people who feared God. All right, seek his ways, govern nations according to God's ways and laws. But first, let's understand something about the law. If you're tempted to say that the Old Testament law is no longer valid, listen, make simple point that our salvation is no longer based on works, but in the blood and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. He didn't come to abolish the law, but fulfill it. So we don't live strictly by the law, but the laws are there to be followed, both at the same time. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law, Jesus said, or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Matthew 5:17-18. Jesus was not proposing that you abrogate the word or dissolve it or render it invalid. The prophets will be fulfilled. The law will continue to accomplish the purpose for which it was given. See that in Isaiah 55:10-11. Jesus said that he came to fulfill the law and the prophets. In other words, Jesus' purpose was to establish the word and to embody it. It was fully accomplished through what is written. Now, Christ is the culmination of the law. Romans 10:4. Jesus came not by, to destroy the law, folks, and the prophets, but to fulfill them, okay? So while some may argue that, well, we're not under the law, no, technically we're not to live by the letter of the law. We're to live by the grace of Jesus Christ, but still follow the law, right? Paul made clear that we are no longer under the law, Galatians 3:23-25, but thank God Jesus fulfilled the whole law, and that grants us the righteousness as a free gift, Galatians 2:16. But the role of the law is to become our guardian, to lead us to Christ and in Christ and how to live our daily lives. So we might be justified by faith, hence the law is essential to show us the way as the biblical roadmap for nations. So with all that being said, that sets the stage for the 6 stages, which we're going to do in the second part. We'll see you over there. Make sure to do a couple things. Check out my community, StevieGarofalo.com. Make sure you share this with others. Like it. Hey, help us spread the word. Make sure you subscribe. You won't miss any more. You won't miss part 2. So God's blessings to you. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. We'll see you at the next video. This is your Reason for Truth for today.